Hey guys, we're gonna do something pretty simple today. I'm gonna go with a t-shirt on a body that I'm gonna offer on my product page. The dev kit is a stripped down version of the original Isis body. And this is gonna be a start to me putting everything out for you to create clothing out of, because most people don't know that making clothing is the easiest part. Making the body is a very tedious and long process, but making clothing, I think, should be accessible to everyone, and it is, because most of us know that Marvelous Designer exists, and it's a fabulous program that you don't have to know how to do 3D modeling to create something that's wearable on IMVU. I use it all the time for layers, for clothing, and it's just so easy to use, and that's what we're gonna do today, in other words. So let's start. In the dev kit, you're gonna see that you have a file already set up for Marvelous Designer. Also, before I start, I wanted to show you the pricing. You can pay either per month or per year, and you have a 30-day free trial. So I recommend downloading the trial to try it out. I think you can export with it, but I don't know about the license, so you may want to read that first. But to practice, it's a really good start. So let's dig into it. I'm gonna go on in my dev kit folder, the one that you're gonna receive, and I'm going to open the Marvelous Designer file that's already included with it. So let's do that right now. We're gonna do the Blender one right after. You're gonna see how easy the whole process is. So just waiting on this to open. Here we go. So once you open the project, you're gonna see the body like this. And I also set up a 3D garment. So I think you can just go and create fitting suit. Okay, so it's not there. I'm gonna check how I can import it, but it's not really important for now, because the point is to make your own clothing and not fit others' clothing onto the avatar. So let's go ahead and start. I don't go by measurements, by the way. So that's one thing. Some people are gonna go and take all the measurements, so I just go by eye. I mean, when you look with your eye there. So yeah, I'm gonna start with the what's it called, polygon tool, and I want to just make the half of the t-shirt here, because after all, after we trace the half of it, we can mirror it on the other side. So it's really easy to check it out. Just click where you want the pattern to be, and you know, a normal shirt pattern is just like square. You want to make a space for the arms. You can keep your, what's it called, your finger on the left button mouse, and it's gonna drag out and make a, it's, you know, I think it's a bit like SVG creation, SVG creation. It's like a vector graphics. So here we go. Now I click back on that point to remove the upper curve, and I want to create a hole for the neck here. So here we go. And okay, something went wrong. Anyways, if it's a good time to show you that if ever you couldn't make a curve, you can go ahead up here, keep your finger on it, and go to edit curvature. From here, you can just drag the line and create a lovely curve. So now we see that this is filled with triangles, and this is bad for IMVU shading, for any type of shading. So we're gonna go ahead and see it in the wireframe mode. and we're gonna change these triangles to quads. And with the pattern selected, you can go on your right side in the panel, and you can either click on remesh. It's gonna give out quads, but if you use remesh with quads, you'll want to keep those seams untouched in Blender, and I'll show you how later on. So I always use this one, this type of pattern on my mesh, because it gives out a really smooth and nice shading in IMVU. And I also want to make the squares smaller, the topology, the quads, we call them, smaller, because this is what's gonna define the curve of the mesh. So to do that, I go in particle distance and I set it to 15 instead of 20. It's gonna make them smaller. So now that I have half of my shirt, I can go ahead, go back into my edit panel, edit pattern tool, and click in the middle, on the middle line, and go ahead and right click and unfold with symmetric editing with sewing. Because when I do that, I can edit one side, as long as I don't touch the middle here. I can edit one side and it's gonna edit both sides. So I'm gonna undo this. And now I need the same type of pattern for the back. So let's go ahead, I select this pattern, hold down Control, press on C. Then I want to press Control again and on V to paste the new pattern. Now with the 3D widget control, I can go ahead and place the other pattern in the back. And I want to make it as close as possible to the avatar so that there's no problem when we're gonna simulate the clothing. And here we want to start sewing. For that, we just need to connect one line to another, and since we're on the symmetric pattern, it's gonna do it automatically on the other side because it's the same pattern. So I'm gonna do the same for the shoulder, and my shoulder is a bit thin here. It's not normal for shirts to have this small. Just one moment. This small of a seam there. So here we go. It's a bit more natural, and I want to do the same for the back. I'm having trouble selecting. Here we go. So 31, 32. So I just may want to do it a bit wider. Okay, we'll stick to 31.9. It's pretty near 32. So now if I press on simulate, I have a nice shirt. But we don't have yet the sleeves. So let's go ahead and do that. And I know I said I don't measure, but I do trace over to keep the same size so that there's not too many strange artifacts going on the seams there. So let's go ahead and create our sleeve. So for the sleeve, I just match these points together. Then I keep my finger and pull to make a nice curve. I click on the point to reset the line, and I can create the sleeve like this. So now, like we did for the shirt, we have to come back here, hit on remesh, and put the particle distance to 15. So now the topology will match with the top here. And now we only have the front part, so we have to, as we did with the top there, we're gonna have to unfold it, and we can also do it in symmetric pattern. So let's go ahead and do that. And I since we're going to be simulating with gravity, I want to place the sleeve over here so that it falls straight on the arm here. Let me show you. Here we go, like this. But before, we want to do the sewing so that it doesn't slide off the arm. So let's go ahead and sew. Okay, now it's giving me a weird result. Okay, so we're gonna have to unfold without symmetry for this one. So let's go ahead and return on our pattern here. And to do that, all we have to do is just remove this dot here because this is part of the symmetry line. So press on delete with the dot selected. Here we go. Now the problem should be solved. Yes. And now that we've sewn the top of it, we can hit simulate. And once that's done, you can go ahead and connect both sides on the bottom here. So now we have one side done. You can fix the width and how it falls on the body later on. Now we're just doing the basics of the basics. So let's go ahead and copy and paste. Oops, sorry, not that. We're gonna Control C and Control right click and mirror past. There we go. Now you should have the same thing, the same sleeve on the other side mirrored. So you can place it, and as for the other side, you can connect the seams by sewing. So here we go. And the one below should have been stayed untouched since it's connecting to the same sleeve. Here we go. So now we have our basic top. It's not pretty, but it's just for to show you how things work in Marvelous Designer. And now it's time for rigging. So we're gonna move. Well, we can edit the UV map inside Marvelous Designer first. I always use Marvelous Designer to make the maps because it's much easier. So let's go ahead and change from simulation to UV editor. That's it. So you can right click and fit all to UV1. It's going to give you a basic side to work with. What I like to do is make one map from the front, one map for the back, and one map for the sleeves. So I select both by hitting control, select one, shift, select the other. Yeah, that's the, and we can align by right clicking, center. And again, on the bottom, that's gonna be one for front, one for back when we're inside Blender. And these sleeves I can place like this, and since it's gonna be its own map, I'm gonna make it overlap the front and the back. So now we can, once everything is in place and you have your maps all figured out how you want to place them, you can go ahead and fit all to UV1 once again. And I like to stretch it out to take as most of the UV space as possible to make the texture a bit more HD. So you can go ahead and also pull this out and take as much space as you can. So here we go. Now we have the UV set up. Usually when we're gonna make the materials, this is what it's gonna look like. You're gonna have one map for the front, one map from the back, and one map for the sleeves. So I'm gonna put that back in the middle here. Now that this is done, we can export the top. So I go up here, hit export OBJ. I'll export it to my desktop. You export it wherever you want. Tutorial dummy. Here we go. So this is gonna pop up. You don't want to export the selected avatars, so we will only want to export the patterns. And try to make all of your settings look like mine. I use the tin. I don't want the backside to show. If I want to hide some parts, I have other ways to do in Blender. So for now, I use tin, unified UV coordinates, and all these settings like this. So now we hit OK. We can close Marvelous Designer and go into Blender. I'll open the dev kit for ISIS. Here we go. Now this I'm gonna fill out with the URLs of this video, so we can ignore that for now. But everything is already set up in here, so we can go ahead and from the corner up here, you can pull and close this window with the left mouse by holding down the left mouse button. So here we go. Now I want to go ahead and go to File, Import, Wavefont OBJ. That's what we exported as. So I go into my desktop, and now we see the tutorial dummy here. I just want to double click it, and here it is. Now the first things I usually do when I import a new mesh, I go ahead and go into edit mode. You can go into edit mode by clicking tab, either tab or going to the menu. Yours will probably be up here. But since I made the setup like this, maybe yours will show up down here too. So I go here, click there, and then you go click edit mode. And it will straightly go into edit mode. So now when the mesh comes from Blender, comes from Marvelous Designer into Blender, the edges are often disconnected. So that's one thing we need to clean before moving anything. Now I'm going to undo this. And to do that, it's very simple. Select A. Press on A on your keyboard. And when it's all selected like this, you can go ahead and press on your space bar. Mine shows the search menu. If yours doesn't show the search menu, I think you can go in Edit and Preferences, and it should be somewhere in the interface. Maybe just 1 moment. Anyways, it should be somewhere in here. You're going to see press space to open search. So in the search bar, I want to type in merge by distance, and here it is. It's right here. So we can click there, and you're going to see removed 230 vertices. They removed the vertices that were connected without being connected. So now you see that everything sticks together when I move them. This is very important because in IMVU, when your avatar is going to move, the seams there are going to split apart, even if they're well weight painted. Sorry, my English is so sucky. Anyways, let's go on. Okay, now since we have the top here and we can see some artifacts, like I said before, it's not the best way to go for the topology of the mesh, because on the edges here you have they're not triangles, they're quads made into these weird shapes, so it causes all sorts of shading issues. Anyways, to fix the basic one here, we can go ahead in just 1 moment. Okay, what's it called? Object data properties. You go into object data properties, and under normals. Yours might be somewhere here or here, but I go into normals, and where it says auto smooth, I untick this box, and you see it took care of most of the artifacts that we saw. You can go ahead and fix it manually, but if you don't know too much about modeling, I mean, this is the best of both worlds. So we're gonna go ahead and leave the tiny artifacts. Well, there's not that many actually. It's probably not even gonna show on the Imvu shader. Anyways, now what we want to do, we want to select the body, hold down Shift, and select our own mesh. From there, we go into weight paint mode. You're gonna find it at the same place that we went for the edit mode. So I'm going to click there, and in the weights menu, you want to go ahead and click on transfer weights. This is going to transfer the weights from the body to the top, so that the top is going to move in perfect sync with the body. So we go ahead and click on transfer weights. When the window appears, you want to change two settings. Next to vertex mapping, you want to select nearest face interpolated, and where it says source layer selected, click on by name, and that's the first step to rigging something. It's it transfers the weights from the body to the top. So now if we parent the top to the armature, it should move with the body. Let's do this right now. So I select the top first, I hold down Shift, I select the armature, I go ahead and press CTRL P, still while holding down Control, and I go and select with empty groups. So now the top is parented to the skeleton. Now we can select the skeleton and go into pose mode. This is where we're going to see the avatar movements, well, the body movements with the top. Let's go ahead. You can press R on your keyboard to move a bone. As you can see, the shirt is moving with the body. So now I'm just doing the same thing, selecting another bone and pressing on R to move it around. I can select another one, press on R to move it around. Here, everything looks good. So the shirt now became usable. Usually though, what I like to do is go into paint mode. Weight paint mode. So we're going in object mode. We're going to select the skeleton, select our mesh, and from the same menu, we go into weight paint. And when you select a bone, now you can see the influence of the weights on the mesh from that bone. So this is a bit more advanced. You don't have to play around with this, but I have a quick way to smooth out some areas, and that's what I'm going to show you. So by selecting a bone, I go ahead in the weights menu, I click on smooth, and I crank it up to about 2. Because if I go further than 2, it's going to do some clipping with the body. And instead of only the active group, I want to select all groups. So it smoothed out everything, even the bones we did not see. So now you can press on R in this mode too to rotate the bone. And everything looks smoother with less artifacts. And you can see that there's not too much clipping. Most poses, avatars on IMVU go this far. So you want to pose your avatar like the poses on IMVU if you want to test. So to reset your skeleton pose, you can go ahead and select all the bones by doing pressing on A. Then you hold down Alt and press on R while holding on Alt. There we go. It's going to reset the position of all the bones. Now I want to go back into object mode. This you could export and it would work on the avatar, but we're missing the materials. And the materials, let me show you what the materials are. One moment. Where I'm going to run Imvu and show you an example of what the materials are and show you how to name your material. I want to go into create mode. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to open the Isis body. Okay, this is a weird looking Isis body, but it's the body for deriving from. So the materials are what you see here, and the numbers here are what are gonna define the, what's it called, the place. We'll say it like that, the place. So let's go into Imvu, and to create those type of materials, it's pretty easy because you have to go into the material tab in Blender too. So hit the material tab. We have the basic material from Marvelous Designer. We can go ahead and select it and remove it from the list because we're not going to need this this material. So now I'm going to go in the UV editing because I just want to do one quick action before. So now I'm pressing on 1 to reset the view. On the keypad, I press on 1. Okay, so here we're not in the UV editing. We have to go into the UV editor. And here we go. So now we have, like in Marvelous Designer, the 3 maps overlapping each other. But what I'm going to do here is go into the UV menu and then hit Seams from Islands. The islands, I'm going to show you something really quick. UV Seams from Islands. Okay. So the islands are this here. This is one island. So it's when you hit UV Seams from Islands, it's going to project these seams here onto the 3D object. So now I can go back in the default mode. And if I change my tool to the quad selector, the square selector, I can go ahead and hover over one piece of island and press L. When I press L, it's going to select everything within the bounds that I just created. So this is for the front. We want to make one material for the front. So I go ahead and add one material and create on new. I'm going to rename this material like this, and it's important to name your materials like this if you're using the old client. I think in the studio you don't have to name them this way, but now we're going to do them like this. So this is the front, so I'm going to name it front. The square brackets, I think they're called parentheses. So front, and also you don't want to give enter the same numbers as these here. It has to be different, and it can't be one of the default materials, which is the skin 00 and the rest This one I don't think it's important, but the 7th is important. So you don't want to touch the 0, 0 or 7. And this is neither skin and neither a default. So we want to make a new number, either higher or lower than this one. So we'll go ahead and call it front square bracket. I'll start at 10, material 10. This is the way you need to write your material names always for the old client. So I go ahead and click assign, because what this is going to do, it's going to assign this particular material into the top here, the front here. So let's hit assign. I hit a couple of times just to be sure that it's well assigned. So now I double click A, double press on A to deselect all. I want to select the back. I go ahead and add a new material, again, a new one. And I want to name it back 11, so it follows up with the front. So now with the back selected and the back selected here too, I can go ahead and press assign. As usual, I do it a couple of times. Then again, I deselect, I add another one. It doesn't matter the order you do it in. You can add all three and just assign them one by one, but I'm doing it for the purpose of this video. So I'm going to name it sleeves. Do it 12 just so it follows in the chain here. And from the sleeves, I will select the sleeves, make sure everything on the sleeves are selected, and click assign a couple of times again. Here we go. Now your top is ready to be uploaded. So to upload the top, it's very easy. Select the skeleton first, the mesh second, and then you go ahead and export, FBX, selected objects. We don't need to import animations, and this is going to slow down the export process, so I recommend always checking it off. You don't need anything in the armature, and the rest you don't need to touch. So here I'm going to name it my top tutorial 1. Go ahead in the desktop and export. So here it's just the body dev kit, but I'm going to import it here for everyone to have an idea of how it's done. Also, if you're deriving from the body, that's why you see the bottom, because you can go in config, and these are all the IDs for the Imvu body, and the bottom here is the 5. 5 is the pelvis, and 6, 7 would be the calves, both calves. So I want to go ahead and hide the 6, 7. I'm hiding the calves, and I'm going to use the pelvis to add my top to the whole body. So I go in FBX import. I go fetch my top. Here we just checked at the IDs. We want to replace the pelvis, so I enter the pelvis here. You want to change the size to 0.01, or the mesh is going to look very weird, or it's not going to appear. And I hit import. And now you're going to see the bottom disappear and the top appear. Here we go. So you could just export your mesh as if, but I usually go ahead and add some colors. And that's what I'm going to do. Just one moment. Bases, colors. Okay, I have all my colors set up. They're all, I think, 1 pixel Yeah, dimensions one by one. It's just to put in a placeholder. So I have different colors here that I'm entering. And here we go. Your top is ready. And just this, you can make it as derivable. So the concept here is you derive from a body that you have the dev kit of. This body is only 50 credit. Usually I'm going to put 100 credit profit for my derivables. But for the dev kit bodies, they're going to be 50 credit. And you on your side can make 50 credit as well, because if you want to stick in the normal price range of derivables on IMVU, you can also make 100 credit. I mean, there's no, I don't have any rules on how much you can put. I'm just saying I lowered it 50 so that you can put a reasonable price on your derivables. So that's about it. Since this is the body, I didn't include a layer. So you maybe want to derive from the top instead, because this is the skin. It's not a skin tight layer. It's the skin. So if I go ahead and put my MCG, you can see that this is what it looks like under. So it's about it. I hope this helped. I'm sorry if I a lot. I'm not originally English and sometimes it goes up and down. So thank you for watching.